So, to recap on VR interactivity, we have an XR manager, which is responsible for setting up listening to signals for raw hand movements and button changes. And then we have an XR grip manager that interprets when you're grabbing something. And this thing just emitted an event called entity grabbed. But I think we need to be more discerning about what message is emitted because we need to support multiple use cases that start off as a grab but have different sort of possibilities. For example, what we have now is a mesh that's tagged interactable, and when we grab that, we emitted an event called entity grabbed. And then what the scene manager does is, oh, you're grabbing something, so let me parent that object that you grabbed to the hand mesh, either left or right. So now when you move your hand around, that grabbed object follows the hand. And that's fine for an interactable because you can grab it from any orientation. You can pass it from one hand to the other hand and turn it around, which would be good for maybe like a book or a map or something you want to hand something between players. But there's some objects that you want to hold in a particular way, like a sword, maybe a ball, like a softball or something, um, or maybe a gun. And so for this one, you might not want to emit entity grabbed because you don't want to allow them to grab it from any kind of orientation. Or maybe you do want to say entity grab, but you want to pass along the tag, say that this is a type of special object and we need to listen for something else when this is happening. For example, on the interactable one, kind of listening just for the release. So this is when I drop the thing. And this release is slightly different from this one because, or at least the way I implemented it was, because the other hand can come and grab it and we didn't emit anything. So when we get a release over here, I was checking for an intersection. And only if I get an intersection do I release or I don't do anything. Because if I didn't get an intersection, then I didn't have to release it and risk unparenting it, which is kind of confusing. Maybe when it gets pulled away from this hand, then do we need to emit something? So these things need to be cleared up. There's other rich interactions, such as if you pick up a bow with one hand and you want to notch an arrow with the other hand. You're listening for movements in the other hand. You have to know when the arrow is notched and when you're pulling back. And this only happens if the bow is in your hand. So I feel like if you drop the bow, you don't need to listen for notching the arrow. You don't need to listen for pulling it back because if you don't have the bow, you basically don't have the weapon. Same with a grenade. If you pick up a grenade, it sort of acts like there should be one way to hold it. You shouldn't hold the grenade like upside down or something. So this is kind of maybe the tag would tell you how you parent something, whether it's a set parent or just parent, which in Babylon has the distinction of whether you are parenting it with an offset, so it just snaps to it, or you keep the relative position and then keep that offset. For the grenade, the other hand, if you use the trigger, then you're not you're not passing it from one hand to the other. The trigger can pull the pin out. So that's something you would need to listen to and animate. So these are all things that I think may happen locally that we don't need to actually send across because we don't maybe need that much detail. I'm not sure. So this is stuff to work out. Then there's other things like maybe you can grab something, but you can't pass it from hand to hand. You're and it won't and you won't it won't be parented. It might just be that your hand actually gets stuck to the lever, and so when you're moving in the vicinity, it's uh, animating as if you're grabbing that lever. So these very different kind of interactions that sort of start off with this grab, but it seems that emitting the event needs some further filtering. So let's take a look at the grip manager as it is now. First of all, do we have things to commit? Okay, I think I was just in the middle of changing some things around. Why don't we go ahead? Yeah, tear it apart. It's okay. So in the grip manager, the thing that we are detecting now is when our model is loaded, we create a grab mesh. And here's the thing we're listening. So when this hand is gripping, we want to know when it is pressed. And I think we want to change this into a filter that says, let's see, this is either true or false. So we only want the true. So when you press it, we'll get a true. And then if you release it, we won't get this event. Okay, so we've already said that it starts with a true, right? So the value of this must be, well, the value has to be true. So this is where it starts. Something was gripped. Secondly, we want to say that it was it made an intersection. You've got to touch it with an interactable. So let's check this. So we'll additionally filter by that. So we'll say filter the value, and we'll say did intersect. Or perhaps map it into the thing you intersect. So we want to say, we want to map it to, we want to keep oh, okay, this is only, we've already mapped this into basically nothing, a true or false. So we're just getting a ping to execute something. So we don't really need the value, so we want to map this into the get this, get find intersecting mesh. I think that's it. This will give back the abstract mesh and what else? Find intersecting mesh. Was always giving back the tag. So let's not do that. Let's keep this simple. Just return the mesh. So meshes. will be this. We'll go through every mesh and just return the first mesh that you find. Otherwise, return nothing. So find intersecting mesh. It will return this, and we'll filter again, saying that value is not equal null. So this will now emit an intersecting mesh, and of that we can determine its tags. We know at least the tag has interactable, but we want to know all the other tags on it later. But this is more or less a kind of signal. This is what it's kind of like a grip started signal. Like grip started equals this. And what is this? This whole thing is a kind of observable. Type argument. So this is a type of Babylon abstract mesh. Okay. So now we just have a signal. This started. And I think the rest of it will be determined by load XR grip, I guess, plugins. And then we'll be moving all of this logic into the plugins. So apart from intersecting mesh, let's check grab, this check release, this create payload. This will all be done by plugins. And let's also move this into the XR folder. And we'll move all these things into there. This is all sort of XR related. Yeah, let's move them. And we've broken a lot of paths. Always automatically update imports, just yes. What's going on here? Cannot find module. Okay, let's fix these one at a time. XARM manager here is now in XR. Let's just go to XR manager. This is one up, one up, up. Not resolve. Teleportation manager. All right. All right. So I think we need some filters. So one of them is just basic interactable. Basic interactable. And we'll just export I don't think it needs to be a class, it can just be a function. Export const basic interactable. To give it an observable though. So this is in so import everything as everything as Babylon test import observable from RxJS and observable of type Babylon abstract. So we've got this signal. Then we can further subscribe to it, or we need to pipe and filter, pipe it some more. Then what do we want to say? We want to say that mesh needs to have certain tags. So we can map it so that it's the mesh, and then return the mesh, and then get the tags, which it's Babylon tags, get tags, and give it the mesh. Import map RxJS operators. I feel like this is something that the do out here in the grid manager. So when you're here, make sure you have something that's not null, and also give us the mesh with the text. So now this becomes observable of abstract mesh and string array. It returns get tags, gives an object a string. Gets the tags available on a given object, defines object as string, defines the container instead of an array of strings. So it's an array of strings. So if we can have that, then over here we'll modify this, and we can just say, we can just filter. So we need the second parameter, so filter it takes the mesh and the tags. Something about return something, return true or false. Now, okay, so the tags does not include like gun or other things, so we know it has interactable at this point. So return so we're just going to create a couple of these sort of different interactable where the filter function, so maybe we have a filter function that can only be true for one of them. Do a quick search. If filter rxjs conditional type So it subscribes to a second set of observables depending on some condition. That might be something we can look into. All right, let's take a break here.